This episode is sponsored by Fantasy Flight Games. Hello and welcome to episode 54 of the Board Game Geek podcast, where we geek out about board games, the mechanisms behind them, and the people who create them. I'm your host, Candace Harris, and I am super pumped to be here today with Johannes from the Board Gaming Ramblings YouTube channel. We had Sunniva a couple episodes ago, and now we're lucky to get Johannes. How's it going today, Johannes?
Hello. It's going pretty good. I am on the other side of the world. I love the internet that we can speak together cross borders and just be, it's probably another time zone where you are and we're just like time traveling and gonna talk about board games. So that is pretty awesome.
Yeah, how does the rest of today shape out? Because it's noon here.
Yes, it's not noon here. Today I've just been working on some stuff that's not board gaming related, but I am the director of a youth acting group, so I've been just watching them today because they had their premiere last week. So I'm kind of done with that project for now. We're going to start up a new project in early next year. So I just was down there looking at them, watching the show today, and then I went to a rehearsal for a outdoor play I'm doing in December. So that's going to be that's basically been my day today. And I've been packing because I'm going to the northern part of Norway tomorrow for doing some magic stuff there this weekend. So that's been my day.
Whoa, that's really cool. I don't think I knew any of that about you. And when you say doing some magic stuff, you're like illusions.
No, I do comedy magic mostly. So
cool.
It's going to be a couple of shows in the northern part of Norway this weekend, and then hopefully more board games next week because it's been so busy since Spiel.
Oh my gosh, yeah, for real, it really has. And considering right now, I feel like is the holiday season for board gamers. We have so many new releases that are arriving and people are playing from Spiel. So I figured today we would just talk about games we've been playing recently and just unload a bit. And I feel like I have very similar taste to you and Sunniva because, we like our heavy Euros and everything. And I've been watching your channel for a while. And so I'm just curious to hear, what you've been playing, what you've been enjoying, and whatnot. But yeah, and I just want to be clear, not everything that we're going to be talking about is necessarily an Essen release. Some of the games are just new to us. Some are upcoming releases.
Yes.
And also, I just wanted to mention, I was recently a guest on the 5 Games for Doomsday podcast with Ben Maddox. And I realized I had a great time on that. It was really challenging. Are you familiar with that podcast at all?
Yes.
Okay. For anyone out there who's not familiar, the idea is you have to, it's Doomsday. You only have time to grab 5 board games off your shelf and get to this cabin, and which games are you going to pick? And so it was extremely challenging for someone like me who's an Omni gamer and just we all are. We're lovers of so many different games. So how do you just pick those 5? And then just as I imagined, I recorded that episode with Ben, I want to say in mid-August, and I thought I had my list locked. But I just recently played Spirit Island for the first time in a while, and I'm reminded how much I love that game. I've been playing the app every night, and I'm not an app kind of player person. I'm not a video game person, but I'm just so enthralled with Spirit Island that I keep this is how I'm going to get it to play it every day. Is before I go to bed, pop on the app. So that should be on my list. So if you check out that episode, I don't know what I would take off though.
So this is kind of your cheat. You're just
Yes.
like, there is 5 there, but if you listen to this podcast, you get the 6th one, which is kind of like the cheating one.
Exactly. It's like hidden under, where in people's trunks where they have the spare tire.
Yes.
I fit in all my Spirit Island stuff. So, yeah.
Who need tires when you have board games?
Exactly. Exactly. Totally. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick is on episode 50, I mentioned a game, and I'll put air quotes up, a game called For the Queen. It's more of a little experience of kind of a narrative storytelling experience. But I got to play it a second time with some friends at a winery over the weekend, and they're like very light gamer type friends. And it was just such a hoot. Like you pick one of these queens and then you just go around answering questions about like things related to this queen. And they had a blast. I had a blast. It was only my second time playing it, but I had to mention it because it was just so fun. And our little stories that evolved, there were love triangles and all sorts of craziness, but it was fun. And then the other thing I'll just mention is that I've still been pumping out Spiel coverage videos of game overviews, interviews with designers. So that's over on the Board Game Geek YouTube channel. I'll probably try to link it in the notes. But lots of cool stuff to check out there. And I guess like that's all that's kind of going on with me lately. Lots of Spirit Island at night and
Awesome.
and editing videos. But I'd love to hear what you've been playing lately, Johannes. So let's jump into our extended fresh plays.
So we're going to start with maybe probably the heaviest game on my list. But before that, I just want to say, and probably you are the same, like Spiel is my favorite week of the year. I just love being at Spiel. Like even if we went there and got 0 games, I would just love being there. Like I just love the fact that, and the same happened to me at Gen Con. We were there for the first time this year. And just to be in that bubble where everybody loves the same thing that we do.
Yeah.
Like, because we are a group of people who have decided that cardboard and miniatures are going to be like the most important thing in our lives. So it's pretty cool to be surrounded by people who are the same way. And today we are going to start with a game that we have only played once. So it's going to be my first impressions of the game. But it's going to be Civolution from Stefan Feld. This is...
It's a beast.
Yes. This is published by Dprint Games. It plays from 1 to 4 players. This is a review copy that we got from the publisher. And we love Stefan Feld. Stefan Feld is one of our favorite designers of all time. And we finally got to meet him this year. That was pretty awesome.
So cool.
He's pretty tall, so it's easy to see him. But we've never seen him at Spiel before. So it was really nice to say hi and say, like, thank you for giving us hours and hours and hours. And now he has given us Civolution, which might be the most complicated game Stefan Feld has ever made. I don't know. Have you played it, Candice?
I have not played it, but at Spiel, I walked over to a table where Paul Grogan was teaching Ian O'Toole and David Terzi and another guy there. And I was just watching those intelligent minds kind of melt a little bit. Like there was smoke and they were looking intensely and there was a lot going on. And I was just like, holy smokes, this looks complex.
Yeah, so I'm probably now supposed to tell you a bit about what you do in this game, but after one play, I had no idea. And if you don't know me or what we do on Board Gaming Ramblings, then we are not like theme heavy. We don't love theme. So Stefan Feld is usually our thing because he doesn't do a lot of themes either. But it's a Civolution game. You're building up your Civolution, but the thing is, it is so sandboxy. You can do whatever you do, whatever you want to do. You can do whatever. So mechanically, it's a dice-driven game. You are going to have in the beginning of the game 6 dice. There are ways to get more, and there's going to be a roll. At the beginning of the game, you're going to have from 1 to 6, but after that, whenever you reset, you're going to roll the dice. You're going to have like a random pips on the dices. The dices or dice, whatever you want to say, plural. And you have like, I think there's 25 or 30 different actions, and every action you need to use 2 dice. So you could have an action that needs a 1 and a 2, one that needs a 4 and a 5. And the thing is that you also have ways to mitigate, of course, like you do in every dice game from Stefan Feld. But the thing is, and this makes it so intriguing. I would have loved to say no. I played it 5 times and I can tell you everything about it. But I was so drained, and it's been like we haven't had the energy to play it, because the thing is that you kind of have no idea what actions you want to do and in what order. And you also have the dice that are kind of limiting what you can do. So when you get to the point in the game where you're like, oh, maybe I want to do this action now, I have to work so hard to be able to do that. But then you can upgrade your actions. So basically you have 25 actions, but you can upgrade all of them 3 times. So you have like 75 different actions.
Oh my gosh.
So you have to be like, I'm going to upgrade something in the beginning of the game. Well, maybe this is good. And so it might seem like I didn't like the game, but I did. I really liked the game. But it was one of those where I think I'm having fun. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I think these things are going to be fun when I do them again. And even when we played it the first time, you get like a set of cards. So you get a specific set that's supposed to be like giving you some clues about what to do.
Some direction.
Those are some subtle clues, because I had no idea what they were trying to tell me. So I need to play that game again. Yeah. But it was a good first impressions, and we loved most Stefan Feld design, so it's an easy one that we're going to go back and play more and hopefully do a video on about as well. But it was a very fun first impression. But it's been a while since a game gave me that kind of a meltdown. Like even we played Speakeasy, the new Vitala Serta game, and that felt like more straightforward than this one. Not as heavy, but like it's very hard to understand what you're supposed to do.
Yes, there's a game like that on my list too. But yeah, that's Civolution, awesome. I was like really excited about it because I have not always been like a huge Feld fan. I mean, I didn't not like Feld games. I just haven't had a lot of experience with them. And I kind of started getting on a little bit of a kick a couple months ago. And it was after I played Forum Trajanum. And then I played Merlin, and I've been wanting to revisit like Castles of Burgundy and everything. But this game I was kind of like really excited about going into Essen, not knowing much about it. But once I started hearing whisperings of like, hey, this is an hour teach. And then once I saw it, I was like, huh. Like, I'm not surprised that like that's your like first experience with it. It does seem like it's going to be one of those games that, you know, you're not going to really know how much you love it or just like it or don't like it until you actually understand it more. And it's something that's going to take some plays to get used to. And hopefully you can play it with people, the same group. So, or at least with people who know the rules so you don't have to do a teach every time.
Yeah, I'm probably going to play it 2-player because it's...
Oh, yeah, or that.
There is some interaction on the board. Some things might be like harder to do in 2-player game. So I might want to try it with 3, but I don't think I want to play it with 4. With the time it took to play it with 2, I don't think 4 is going to be awesome.
Gotcha. And then you briefly mentioned Speakeasy. I haven't gotten a chance to play it, but I got a rundown of it at Spiel, and oh my gosh, that looks awesome. And like, you know, I don't know if I've said this publicly before, but I have not played the last 2 games, Weather Machine or Inventions. I know that's the reaction. But it's not because I don't know, they just haven't drawn me in enough that I'm like, ooh, I can't wait to do it. And I do love a lot of Lacerda games. Like I love Lisboa. I've not played it nearly as much as probably you and Sonova.
Oh, I love it so much.
But I love Vinos. I love Kanban EV. And On Mars was cool. Haven't played that enough. But for this one, this theme, and just hearing how it works sounded so cool. How many times, just, we're kind of jumping off topic talking about Speakeasy here.
That's awesome.
But how many times did you get to play it, and how do you feel like it kind of is going to stack up in your Lacerda rankings?
I think we played it 3 times. We only got to play it with 2. Okay. So I want to play it with more because we that happens sometimes. We always try to play things with different player counts, but sometimes we have to get this video out now. There's no people that we can play this heavy game with right now. We need to just play it. So we really like Weather Machine. I know a lot of people don't, but we really love Weather Machine a lot. In Inventions, we found okay. We did not love that one that much, but this one was really good. It is interesting because I think it might be the most awesome. It is the most awesome theme in a game. I say I don't like theme, but when it's a pretty cool theme, I don't think I have spoken about the theme more in a game for a long time than when I played this one. It was just like, oh, this feels like I'm a mobster and I'm doing these things. I'm going out speaking to different people to get them to do what we want. And all of these things that feels very mobster-like. I also said, when we did a video for it, and I said that it might be the most, I'm doing air quotes now, straightforward worker placement game from Lacerda, because the core system is a very straightforward worker placement. I'm going to place the worker, I'm going to do the action that's there, and it's not even that tight because you have a space you can go to kick out somebody, they get a bonus, but you get to do the action. So I don't feel like it's that much about the tightness of the actions, but it's more of you are trying to do the actions in the correct order. You are building out your buildings. You have these small, cute little trucks you're driving around with little...
barrels.
Barrels, that was the word, thank you. Sometimes my Norwegian brain shuts off some English words.
No worries.
But it's very crunchy, and I feel like if you see that, if you are a thematic Eurogamer, I think you're basically going to love it instantly if you like heavier games. But it's one of those where it's oh, I have these 12 buildings or something on my board. Maybe I will build 6 of them. After the game is done, I built 2. That was the whole thing I did. I built 2 buildings, 2 hours, 2 buildings, but you got to do some other things. So it's one of those where you feel where am I supposed to do more than this? But I really liked it, and it's hard to say where it will rank, but I really want to play it again, and especially with more people.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for that little intel
Extra
on
game.
Speakeasy. Yeah, because I'm very excited about it, and I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, but it's the first Lacerda game that I've been ooh, I can't wait to play that.
That's awesome.
So you started your list with Civolution, and I decided to make my list in order of least complexity to most complexity for whatever reason. So I'm going the complete opposite direction, and the first game that I'll mention is called Shock, and it's spelled XOK, and it means shark. It's a Mayan term, I think, for shark. Okay. But this is a 2-player abstract strategy game that's designed by Joel Escalante and Rafael Escalante. And it's a 2024 release. It might have dropped at Essen. I bought it at Essen. I think it was an Essen release. And it's published by Stefan Spiel. Again, it's a 2-player abstract strategy game where we are going to be competing to make a connection of 10 pieces, or have 10 of our colored pieces connected. You have this cloth mat. I don't know what the material is. I don't really remember, but it's a very small board that you play on that's fabric. And it is kind of a turquoise color, like the water. And you have hex spaces that you're going to be placing out fish and sharks. So one player will control the white pieces, one player controls the black pieces, and on your turn, very simple, you either place 2 fish on empty spaces that are adjacent. So those 2 fish, they don't need to be adjacent to previous fish you've placed or anything like that. You just need to make sure that they are touching each other on one of the edges. Or you can play one of your sharks. So in this game, you have 6 sharks. 3 of them are small sharks, I think they're called, where basically they only have one mouth. And the other 3 sharks you have 2 mouths that are kind of pointing in different directions. So each of your 2-mouth sharks are slightly different. And these are like really nice wooden pieces, like kind of chunky, and they feel great. So what you're going to do is, if I play fish, then you could either play fish or you could play sharks. And again, you're trying to have 10 of your pieces connected, and then that'll end the game. You'll win the game immediately. But the sharks add the twist, because when you play a shark, you're going to position the mouth or mouths so that it's going to eat at least one of your opponent's fish. And when you eat a fish, you're not like collecting them like checker pieces or whatever. You're just giving the fish back to its owner. But the cool thing is, if you play a shark, you can play it on top of one of your opponent's pieces, fish, not sharks, but one of their fish, because now all of a sudden my small mouth or my one mouth shark, if I sit it on one of your pieces, it automatically eats the one that it goes on top of. And then I also eat the one in the direction that the mouth is pointing. So the single mouth fish could potentially eat 2 fish, the single mouth shark could potentially eat 2 fish. And then the double mouth could similarly eat 3, because you can put it on top of one of your opponent's fish, and then it also will eat fish in the direction that its mouths are pointing. And you're just doing this, and carefully trying to decide where you're putting pieces. But again, you only have 6 sharks. And so when you run out of sharks, you cannot eat your opponent's fish. And so there's a whole element of like, when do I want to start playing sharks? And, how fast do I want to burn through my sharks? Because if I burn through my sharks, Johannes, you're just going to go put a bunch of fish out and win the game, And that's how I ended up. I've only played it once so far. It's only like a 20-minute game, but my opponent ran out of sharks because we were both kind of like learning the game. But I have a little more board game experience than she did. So I was like, oh, yeah. But it's really cool. And I like that it's a small box and it's very thinky and very simple. So yeah, that is Shock. Have you seen that, or do you like abstract strategy games?
We do. We thought for a while that we didn't, and then we tried them and we liked them. Very interesting story. I gave it to you. You can buy the movie rights to that one if you want them. But
I hope I get a deal.
Yes, that sounds really fun. Like a kind of like a hive-ish feeling.
Yeah,
but in a different, like maybe a simpler one, like with less different rules.
Yes,
it seemed like which is a good thing sometimes because it's like very simple to learn.
Yeah, and this is like the box is small and long. I would say it's almost like if you take 2 empty toilet paper rolls and stack them, like that's the length of the box and the width of the box. And you could probably even just get rid of the box and put the pieces in the board and put a rubber band around it and carry it like a little sack. But it's like a good game for travel. The beach, I'm pretty sure it fits on an airplane tray, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was cool, very light but thinky, and that is Shock, the lightest game on my list. What's the next game on yours?
My list does not have any rhyme or reason. It's just like an order that I decided to put them in because I was not told to put them from lightest to heaviest.
Hey, this is the first time I've actually done that. I'm a wild card sometimes.
So this summer we understood that trick-taking games are fun.
Yes!
And now I have like 80 of them in my house.
One of us.
So today I want to speak about the one that is, it's a trick-taking game. It's also a shedding game called The Yellow House. This is released 2024 from Mandu Games, designed by Geonil. It's a 2-player only game, and this was another review copy. So, The Yellow House, there is a theme here. I will try to tell you about the theme, even though I don't remember it, because I don't like theme. It's basically a game about 2 artists, Van Gogh and Gauguin. I don't know how to pronounce his names.
Okay.
I'm from Norway. We ride polar bears to work. Like, we don't know anything about names from other countries. But basically, it is a trick-taking shedding game with only colors on the cards. So there's no numbers on the cards.
Ooh.
And there is a little board with numbers on it where you will place 4 different markers that has the same colors as the cards. It would be weird if it was just like 4 random colors. They're the same to make the game actually work. And that's basically going to be the value for the cards. So when I play a card, if I lead, I just play a card I want to, and then you will have to play a card that is higher valued than my card. And if that token is on the same level or lower than my card, you will have to pay more of that card to level up that color before you will be able to play that color. So it's a very weird game because it makes no sense. When you play it the first time, you are just like, oh, but in some trick-taking games, it's going to be good to get rid of suits because you are sending some cards from one player to the other. So you're kind of thinking like, okay, do I want to get rid of these cards? So I sit down. But then here it's just like, oh, but I might want to have... And the order you play things is so interesting because when you come to a point in the round where I have a look at my hand and be like, oh, I lost this hand. Because will be no situation where I will get rid of my 5 of one suit. So it's all about seeing, okay, if I play this color that is higher than this other color, I will force you to hopefully don't have a lot of that color because I have that. So you will play that's 1 over it, and then I can use all my cards of that other color to upgrade that, and then play my last card in that color and get out of the round. So it's a different way of thinking that's very interesting. It's one of those where I would not recommend this as like the first trick-taking game or shedding game, any game like that, because it's pretty weird. It's not straightforward in the thinking, and also kind of like takes everything and puts it on its head. And basically, when you win a round, the card that you won with goes out of the game, and then you also you will try to win 3 rounds or 2 rounds with the same color. Which is also interesting because then the other player knows that you want to stay with that card to play that card last, which make it even harder. And there's also these support cards that you can use to add to your cards when you are upgrading the levels of the other cards or the colors, so that you kind of, I want to use my card, but I also want to keep that card so I can be able to play it next round. And I hope some of it made some sense because it's a kind of weird game to explain.
That's cool.
But I recommend it. If you enjoy these kind of games and you like want a 2-player head-to-head trick-taking shedding game, absolutely recommend it.
Awesome. Yeah, this was on my list to check out, but I just never made it on over to the booth. It's called The Yellow House?
The Yellow House, yeah.
Yeah, Yellow House. I love weird and different trick-taking and climbing shedding games. And it's funny because I have a good friend of ours who... one time I was really excited about Robo Trick, and I was just like, I forgot that it's kind of complex and thinky. And I was just like, oh, you got to try this game. And he's like, I don't want to play one of your esoteric trick-taking games, Candace. So know your audience, I guess. But yeah, you said it, like, don't make this one your first. But people like me who have a lot of experience playing these games and actually enjoy the ones that are, really going outside the box, that's really cool. I will have to pick that one up. Cool. The Yellow House. All right. Well, my next game, moving a step up in complexity, is a game that didn't drop at Essen, but it came out earlier in 2024, and it is called Captain Flip. And this is a game, I think it was the first release from Playpunk, which is a newer publishing company that Antoine Bauza is part of. But this design is from Remo Consadori and Paulo Mori. Both these guys have designed a lot of different games that I'm sure many people have heard of. Like, I think Remo did Rise and was it Three Ring Circus? He co-designed Three Ring Circus. Okay. And then Paulo Mori has just done a ton of stuff. I'm still hoping for a Dogs of War reprint at some point, putting that out into the universe, because I've still never played Dogs of War, but I feel like I'm going to love it. But anyways, Captain Flip is a light game for 2 to 5 players where everyone is playing as pirate captains, and you're going to we're going to be recruiting a crew of different characters and collecting coins, and the goal is to have the most money by the end of the game. Everyone has their own pirate ship kind of player board. It's more of a mat than a board. But one of the cool things with this game is that it comes with 4 different mats that you can play with to kind of change things up, vary it up a little bit. But the core of the game is around this bag of 72 double-sided character tiles that represent 9 unique characters. So on your turn, remember it's called Captain Flip, you're going to randomly draw a character tile from this bag, and you're going to only look at one side, and you're going to decide if you want to keep it as that side, or you can flip it, not knowing what's on the other side. Either way, if you flip it, you have to take what's on the opposite side, and you will play that into one of your columns on your player board in the lowest empty space. So on your player board, you have, I've only played this once for the first time recently. You have different, like the first column I think had 2 spaces. The second column maybe had 3. The third maybe had 4 or 5 spaces. So each column has, a varying number of spaces that you'll be able to put character tiles on. But that's what you're doing on your turn. You're drawing a character, and we were doing this funny thing where to make sure we didn't look at the other side, like slamming it on the table, and then kind of deciding, do I want to take this character or do I want to flip it? And then you place it, and you keep doing this until a player has 4 of the 5 columns filled. And then and then you just finish that round, and that's the end of the game. So, this game, the heartbeat of the game is about all these different characters and how they interact together. You have some that have immediate effects, some that have end game effects. There's a character called Swabby that my friend Ben and I were very much in, like, trying to, like, make sure we get Swabbies and not the other person. But Swabby has an end game scoring condition where for each column that you have a Swabby in, each different column, you get a number of coins at the end of the game. So, like, for example, if you just have one Swabby in one column, you might just get 1 coin. But if I have 3 Swabbies or a Swabby in 3 different columns, I might get 7 coins at the end of the game. So it's like a set collection thing, but you want at least one Swabby in as many columns as you can score. And then there's a parrot. There's a parrot that's going to let you draw and play another tile. But the parrots cost money. I don't know why. I don't know if they're eating your coins, but at the end of the game, you lose a coin for each parrot. There's
theme.
Theme. Yeah. There's a cook that gets you 1 coin per character in the row, counting themselves. There's a gunner who, listen to this, Johannes. The gunner gives you 5 coins immediately. Like, that's a big score. But if you have 3 or more gunners, you automatically lose the game.
Oh, wow.
So there is a push your luck element with, like, after you take a second gunner, which I had, you're like scared to flip, you know?
Yeah.
And the good news is the double-sided tiles, there's always a different character. So if you are in that situation where you have 2 gunners and you draw a gunner, hey, you flip. You flip to stay alive. And speaking of flipping, there's a monkey. And the monkey lets you take a coin, but then you flip 1 adjacent tile to wherever you place the monkey. So you'll flip a tile and, you know, resolve whatever effect of that tile. So maybe you flip a tile and it's a parrot, and the parrot lets you draw a new tile. So you kind of have a little bit of a chaining effect. But anyway, there are 9 different characters. They all like impact different things. Like there's a lookout who wants to be the highest tile on a column to score 4 coins at the end of the game. And it's just quick, but we're all invested in everybody's turns in a fun way. There was a cartographer that lets you gain this map. And if you have the map, you gain a coin at the end of your turn. I'm curious to try the different maps as well. They all have like a different look and feel and some twists on the rules, but you're still playing with that same bag of tiles. So it's like once you understand how all those tiles interact, the characters, like it's really cool. And then there's an expansion coming out, I think later this year, called Jaws of the Kraken. I have no idea what it adds, but I'm already excited about it because, you know, I play with a lot of lighter gamers here and there. And like, I don't know, this game, like I ended up buying it after I played my friend Mike's copy. And because I was like, oh, this is like, it's fun. It's fun for when you're playing with the light gamers or something at the end of the night that's just like quick. You're going to get some laughs out of it. And I see why it was like nominated for, I think it was nominated for Spiel des Jahres or one of those. Yeah. So anyway, that is Captain Flip. And I know you said you hadn't played it, huh?
And no, I'm not played it. I saw it. It got like all the buzz when it came out.
Yeah.
But we never got to try it. We tried to play all the games, but we can't because we also have other things to do. Yes. Sadly.
Totally agree. Yeah, that's why I just got to playing it for the first time, but I did enjoy it quite a bit. What's the next game on your list?
So this, people listening to this, you're not going to believe it because this is the best transition in podcast history. My next game is Flip 7. So Captain Flip 7.
Nice. Nice. Well played.
Thank you. All the nominations for best podcast episode ever comes to us now. Thank you.
Best podcast episode transition.
Yes. It's going to be like, it's very niche, but we're going to win it. So this is a game that is way more fun than it's supposed to be. This is from designer Eric Olsen, published 2024. It came out at Gen Con from the OP Games. It plays from 3 to 99 players. And basically, box says nothing, but I think maybe the maximum on BGG is 99. Is that correct? Because I don't think I've seen a game that goes to more than 99. So it's basically infinite. But the game rule says if you play with more than 18 people, you might need another deck. That is basically what the rule says for playing with more.
That's funny.
And this was another review copy that we got from the publisher.
Cool.
This was a game. When it was explained to us, I was like, okay, that's a game. I read the rules. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a game. I played it. And then I played it, and then we played it some more, and then we played it again, and then we played it again, and it is way more fun than it's ever supposed to be. Like, not supposed to be, but more than it makes sense. Because this is one of those, this is basically what you do in the game. If I am the dealer, I'm just going to have the cards in my hand. I'm going to flip a card in front of all the players playing. If it's more than 18, I will have to go around the table, which sounds really boring. So probably best with less than 18, or less than 99 at least. So I'm flipping a card, and the cards are going to have a number on it. And this deck of cards has from 1 to 10 or 0 to 10. There is 12 12s, 11 11s, 10 10s, and so on. And when you flip one card for each player, then it's going to come back to the first player again, and it's basically a blackjack. You're going to say, hit me, give me a new card, or pass.
Okay.
And if you get a new card and you get the same number that you already had, you're out of the round. But if you don't get the same number, you can continue getting cards. And the goal is basically to, when a round lasts until everybody's passes or everybody's out, and you're going to note the scores, and then the first player to get 200 points is going to be the winner of the game. That is the base of it. If you manage to flip 7, which is the name of the game, 7 different number cards, you're going to stop the round instantly, and you're going to get all your points plus a bonus 15 points.
Ooh.
On top of that, there is action cards. So there's a card that lets you freeze another player, basically instant pass that other player. There is a card that lets you either on yourself or another player flip the 3 next cards, and they have to play all of those cards. There's a second chance card which you can keep, and then when you bust, you will get that out and you will continue to play. And there is some double card. There's a one card that doubles the whole score for the round. There is a couple that gives you like a couple of extra points but aren't a numbered card. And that is basically the game. And it's a game that if you ever thought to yourself, I would like to be a gambler, but I don't want to lose all my money, this is the game for you. It gives you really that gambling feeling of like, it's the closest to a casino-style game I have ever played in a card box. And it is very good. And this is one of those games where I would be like, everyone should have this game. Because it's just like, you can teach it in a minute and you will play it in 15.
And then play it 5 more times.
Yes. Because everybody's laughing and having a good time.
Yeah, that sounds super fun. I feel like I've been smiling the whole time you're talking about it.
Yeah.
I know that would be a hit with like my family and and just friends in general. That sounds awesome, especially when I'm looking for a game for 18 players, you know?
Yes, or 99. But then you need probably like 4 decks. And you have like a deck like 2 feet long, and you will shuffle it and it will be horrible.
Did you ever play 10?
No.
Okay, that 10 was another kind of push your luck game that gave me a slight casino game feel to it, but I enjoyed that one a bit, but I ended up passing it on to a friend because it's like, you know, so many games, and I think it like wore off a little bit just because I
did play this. I did play it.
Oh, you did play it? Okay.
Yes.
But anyways, I was kind of curious about how it kind of compared to that, but I don't even remember exactly how that one, it was something where you're flipping cards and there was a busting element and these like white and black stones.
I don't remember, but what I really like about Flip 7 is that it's so quick. It gets that like rush because you flip a card. That's what you do. So there's no thinking. There's no what did this card do again, or what is this? It's just like, oh, you get this card, you want another one. And that feeling of, I love being the dealer, to have like the deck of card in my hand and be like peeling the card off the deck, holding it onto them, be like, oh, you're going to get a new card, or do you pass? Oh, you got it. Oh no, you busted, all your card goes out. And it's just like, it's just
sounds
plain
so fun. Yeah. Okay, cool. I definitely want to play that one. Flip 7. Cool. And it's also the game that won the award for best podcast episode transition.
Yeah,
you know,
pretty wild.
Yeah, that is something else. They should put like a sticker on the box as they print new copies about that.
Just to be completely transparent, the jury on that is Candice and Johannes. So just like you know that before.
Just so everybody knows.
Yes, we gave that award to ourselves.
Awesome. Well, Flip 7 sounds super cool and fun. Like really, really fun. Can't wait to try it. The next game on my list, I think you might have played, but it is a game I talked about that I was looking forward to playing on my Spiel anticipation episode with Aldi, and it's called AI 100% Human. This is a game that's designed by Renaud and Pierrick Liberlesso, and it is a 2024 ESSA release from Explore 8, who was kind enough to provide me a review copy of it. And this is a card drafting and tableau building game for 1 to 6 players where you're going to be developing your own AI. Just as I've previously mentioned, the hook of this drafting game is that you have a reserve of cards in your hand. And this is a very quick playing game, although it can be thinky. But if people aren't thinking that long, you could probably bang this out in 30 minutes. If you're thinking long, it might take an hour. But there are only 2 rounds. And at the start of the first round, everybody's going to get a hand of, I think, like 4 cards. And from those 4 cards, you're going to keep, I believe, 2 of them to start your reserve. And then we do the drafting. And I think it's like 7 cards. Everyone is dealt 7 cards. You're going to pick one of those cards and add it to your reserve. And then you're going to set aside the cards that you're passing either right or left. I think round 1, you pass left. Round 2, you pass right. But now I have 3 cards in my reserve, and I choose one of those to play into my tableau. And when you play it into your tableau, it has to be orthogonally adjacent to another card in your tableau. And you always have a starting card in the center. And then you're going to score it immediately based on whatever it says. Maybe it's like, hey, you score for every red card in different columns, you score something. Or for pairs of blue and green cards in each row of your tableau, you score something. But the cool thing about having a reserve is that if you have something that will provide more lucrative scoring later in the round as you build out your tableau, you can kind of hang on to that. But the cards that you start round 1 with are all going to go away. So you can't like carry reserve cards from round 1 to round 2. Then the other thing is you have like end of round public objectives that you can score. So you're going to be working to position your player cards so that they, you can score as many points as possible from those. But you're basically trying to have the most points as you play, and you're trying to synergize the cards in your tableau. When you look at this game initially, there are lots of icons to get used to, but they give you player aids. Like I think there were 3 cards that make up a player aid that have just about every icon explained, which is super helpful and very much appreciated in a game like this with so many icons. But a lot of the icons are very, like, once you get the swing of it, it's like, oh, this is the icon for any of my columns. This is the icons for the row that this card is placed in, And it's quite intuitive once you get going. And it's colorblind friendly because I think every color has like an icon and some kind of thematic touch. But what is theme, for how it impacts this AI that you're developing. But I've played it twice so far, and it's fun. It's thinky. I think we played with 3 players, and I think it might be even more fun with 4 players. There are some cards that let you interact with your opponents. Like you can score based on whoever scored the highest this round, or one of your neighbors, whoever has the most of this color card in their tableau, or, it just kind of varies. But there are lots of cards, lots of replay value. And again, very thinky. We played it once and it was like probably 35-40 minutes, and then we were like immediately played it again because everybody's like, oh, like I get it now. But it's cool if you like drafting tableau building games that are thinky. I think this is a cool one, and I love that like simple touch of having a card that lets you look at the cards that you currently have in your reserve and the cards that were just passed to you at the same time. And, versus like, oh, let me pick this stack up and then, put that down. Look at this. It's a little innovation that I thought was really cool. And I don't know that I like card drafting in games. It's not necessarily my favorite genre to just build a tableau. I didn't really get into Earth. But this is pretty fun. And I think Rado kind of spoke pretty highly of it when he tried it earlier this year of this might kill Seven Wonders for a drafting game. Definitely worth checking out if you're looking for something that's 30 to 45 minutes, lots of different cards. And also when you start round 2, you have a different end of round scoring card. And there's a bunch of different cards for these scoring objectives, but you also play with a different deck of cards. So there's a different, more exciting cards. I don't remember exactly what the difference is, but there are lots of cards in this one. I think you mentioned you got a chance to play this one at some point.
We did play it one time at 2 players, and I really liked it. We are big fans of spatial puzzles, basically. So every game that gives us an interesting spatial puzzle is always a welcome thing into our lives. And what this game did, which I'm a bit surprised I'd never seen in a drafting game for 2 players before, is that it added a thing that made a drafting game work for 2 people.
Yeah, I was wondering when you said you played with 2, how does that work?
Because most drafting games are kind of not that interesting with 2. So basically, and it's super simple. It's that simple. So I'm thinking why was this never done before? So basically, you draft a card and you discard a card, and then you draw a new card adding to your deck or to your hand. So you're kind of simulating. You basically draft 2 cards, but one is discarded and one you put into your reserve, and then you draw a new one. So you're simulating new cards coming in, and you can also kind of hate draft a little bit to other players. And it's so simple. Of course, it adds a randomness element to drafting, which is not that random after you have gotten the initial cards. But also when you play with more people, you wouldn't know what is in those other hands. So it kind of simulates that in a nice way.
That's pretty cool. And this game has a solo mode too. So I wonder if they're doing something like that to have the single player draft. But
yeah, that might make sense.
Yeah. So something to check out, especially like you said, if you like these spatial puzzle games, it's pretty cool. So that is AI 100% Human. Oh, and there's one other thing I'll briefly mention. In addition to the game, this was a game that was crowdfunded. So they have neoprene mats. You don't need it. If you just buy the base game, you'll have the cards and you can build your grid. I don't remember exactly the size of the grid, but they do have these neoprene mats and kind of deluxe components. And the neoprene mat is cool because not only does it have a pre-printed starter AI card in the center that you can use, but it also has different bonuses on spaces that you can, hey, when you play a card on this, you get to trigger some effect. Or if there were 2 spaces on everybody's mat, that if it was the last space you filled in, it triggered some cool effect at the end of the game. So that gives you even more to think about as oh, I really don't want to fill in that space because I'm really trying to hope to just do it at the very end. But no, this card is going to score so much more if I do cover that space right now, So I thought that was a cool twist to have those pre-printed abilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, cool. What's the next game on your list, Johannes?
So we're going from Flip 7, which might be the lightest game is the lightest game on my list, up to one of the heaviest ones. This is the other heavy game on my list, basically, for this time. In a usual time, would probably be this list would be filled with heavy games.
Right.
But since we got home, we've been sick, we've been busy, so we've been playing many of the smaller games. But we got to play a prototype of a game called Sweetlands, which is then obviously a prototype sent to us. We did not make it ourselves. Yeah, I know, big shot. It is designed by Totsuka Chuo, published in 2025 by Uchibakoya, and it is from 1 to 4 people. This is a big game. This is, if you go and look at the pictures on BGG, they are colorful, they are nice, looks like a pleasant game with very nice wooden components. You are in this pleasant little world of it's again like one of our like the biggest, if we ever made like a top 10 worst tropes in board games, our favorite theme ever is the king is sick. He is looking for his successor. Can you build a city to show you are supposed to be the next king? I didn't know that was the way kings were made. Like, oh no, we don't have a successor to. If you build something for us, maybe you can be the king. And that is the thing here as well, but it's made with a little funny twist. Okay. Basically, the king is almost dying because he ate too much candy. And now you have to like build it to see who will be his new successor. Fun. So it's kind. I feel like it's poking a bit fun at that trope, which again we don't care about themes, but we always kind of get a chuckle when it's like, oh, it's another one of those where we are randomly pitting against each other to build something to show that we can be the new king. So in this game is. It says so itself. It's inspired by Terraforming Mars and Terra Mystica, and you have a lot of that DNA in the game, but at the same time it feels very differently. It's Terra Mystica because you have a board with a lot of your pieces on them, and you're trying to place those pieces out. You're going to get new income and bonuses when you build them, and then you're going to have like a huge deck of cards. Like in Terraforming Mars, you're going to have a huge deck of cards. We only played this once so far, but there is, as in Terraforming Mars, a drafting variant. So now we just randomly drew cards, but I would, like in Terraforming Mars, I will never play that without drafting. This is the same. You have like huge stack of cards, and you are trying to build these buildings, which is basically people with different jobs that will give you different bonuses and abilities. Some can give you ongoing abilities, some are instant abilities, and they have colors, they have different tags, kind of like in Terra Mystica, or in Terraforming Mars. But in this game, instead of having a shared board, you are building your own little board, and you have a board which has different terrains, so you can build terrain tiles on it. You will then try to build roads adjacent to those terrain tiles, so they will flip over, giving you an income bonus. And then you will try to build buildings on top of them to trigger that bonus again. You're trying to build different buildings adjacent to each other, so you get cities, and you're trying to do all of these different things while also trying to not melt your brain. Because this is a lot. There is so many things to do, and you have all of these different buildings. You will go for different strategies depending on the different cards. You have different scorings. There's so many things to try to keep track of, but it's also a lot of fun. We only played it once. It took us 2 hours and 40 minutes with 2 people. So it's a longer game, but that was also a learning game. So I'm pretty sure when we play again, it's going to be quicker because it's a lot to process. So the first time you play a heavy game, you're going to spend time like, how does this work again? And trying to get the gears to work. And, I guess I can play a card now. How do I pay for that? With these resources. So it's pretty nice because it really has DNA from Terraforming Mars, both with the cards and also with the income tracks. In the beginning, you're going to have a little, and then at the end of the game, you might get like 45 money. And you'll be like, oh, I can play all my cards now. But also what is really cool about this game is that it doesn't only have cards, it has worker placement as well. But with the worker placement, it's not like my own workers. I just place a disc from the supply. But when I do an action, I have to pay a card. So I have to also use the cards as payment. And if somebody has done the action before me, I have to pay more cards if I really want to do the same action again. So it has that like economy of the cards and also like different resources with economy. So everything is very tight. Everything is hard, but everything is also fun. And we like fun. The most fun games is when everybody's sitting with their head down, just saying, I don't understand what's going on. Let's do this again next week. That is the best way to play games.
Awesome. So this is Sweetland, and I'm assuming I think it's on crowdfunding, right? Because I had just heard of this a week ago or something, and I don't even remember how it fell onto my radar. And I looked at it and I was like, I wonder if it was Steph Hodge, All the Meeples of the Rainbow, and Michael, if they played
they did
it or
that
something.
video, yes.
Okay, maybe, maybe I saw that. And I was just like, oh, what is this game? Like, it looks beautiful and like it looks different, but it definitely looks heavy and crunchy. I did not know that it had like a bunch of cards. I love games that have a bunch of cards. So
many, like a big stack of cards.
That's really cool. I'm gonna be curious to try this one.
It's coming next week, I'm pretty sure, on crowdfundings.
Okay. So that will be at the end of October, early November.
Yes, end of October. That's true.
Awesome. Well, I will keep an eye out for this one because, like I said, it looked different. And I forget, I don't know if those designers did something else.
The publisher did. We haven't played any of their games, but they did a game called... I am cheating and looking it up. A game called Ostia, which I heard about but did not play.
Yeah.
And also Aqua Garden.
Okay.
Which is like other heavy games that I heard about, wanted to play, never got a chance. But I really want to do it after playing Sweetlands.
Right. And I remember seeing the cover of Ostia whenever it came out, like 3 or 4 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
But I've never got around to trying that one either. But cool. I'm actually glad you got an opportunity to play it once and talk about it, because I was kind of curious about it when it fell on my radar like a week ago. Awesome. Sweet lands, lots of candy.
Yes.
This is like the adult Candyland, huh? Or like the Candyland for heavy Euros. Yeah, for heavy gamers, not heavy Euros. And now a word from our sponsor. Bring horrifying tales of ancient ones and arcane mysteries to your table this Halloween season. Delve into Arkham Horror the Card Game revised core set with up to 4 friends and take on the role of investigators in the city of Arkham. Play through this cooperative living card game through multiple scenarios and try to survive the unspeakable evils and unknowable horrors. Adventurous and experienced players will also enjoy the newest scenario pack, the Midwinter Gala, where players align with a faction of their choice and work together to claim the powerful relic at the center of the Lantern Club's nefarious plot. Even more horror awaits in the Drowned City expansion, releasing early next year. Pre-order today at your local game store and follow Fantasy Flight Games on social media for up-to-date information and special Arkham Horror content in the week leading up to Halloween. Next game on my list is a game that... Okay, so I met a game designer at Spiel, and I feel like it was either last year or 2 years ago. I don't remember. But I met a game designer at a booth, and he was telling me about this game he created, and he was like, I think you're going to like it, because he kind of followed my content and knows what I'm into. And this is a game called DerrocAr, The Week of 5 Presidents. It's designed by Bruce Brusco, and it's came out in 2024, but I think I received this copy a lot earlier this year, and I just got around to playing it recently. I think I've been like waiting for the right people to play it with, and last night I had that group, and this is a game from Ion Game Design. Plays with 1 to 5 players. And it's based on something that went down in Argentina in 2001, where there was this like really kind of severe economic catastrophe. And they ended up going through 5 presidents within like 2 weeks. And that's like a real story. So in this game, we are each playing as senators and governors of the different provinces, and we're all trying to like outmaneuver each other to become the next president of Argentina. And I'll just read this quote from the description, but it says, In a country tired of politicians, you need to prove that you are the least bad option by making sure that the provinces of the other governors are full of conflicts. By making it look like your opponents cannot even manage their own provinces, they will be even less able to manage the country. So this is a game that I knew going into, just because I watched a couple videos, that was going to be a little bit of a wild ride. And which I feel like, just based on the little that I know about the history, it sounds like it's kind of thematic and fits what was going on. And the designer is Argentinian too, so this is a part of his history. So he has experience with this topic. And basically in this game, you play round after round until the end of the game is triggered, and each round has 2 phases. And it's kind of it's kind of nifty how they did it. They have this tile for whoever the first player is, and first player never changes, but the first player, this tile tells you which phase we're on. So first, it's the board phase, and not BORED. It's very fun, actually. It's the board, game board phase, where each player in turn order is going to get to take an action that's on one of these boards. So this is a game where it's mostly card driven, but there are some boards you'll lay out, small boards, probably 5 or 6 of them, I think. And different boards have different action options that you can take. So we're all going to go around in turn order and take a board action. Some of the things you can do in this phase is you can propose a law. So there are these law tiles, circular tiles. There'll be 3 that are face up, and there's kind of a little deck of them. And you could just pick one of those and propose a law. And then we're all going to vote, starting with you. We have these tokens that say C on one side, no on the other. And it's not like a voting system where we secretly vote and then reveal. First player who proposed the law is going to vote. Next player is going to vote. Next player is going to vote. Next player is going to vote. But when the sneaky stuff comes in is that after we do that and see what the initial count is, then we can all secretly, with a blind bid, put in money in our hands to buy votes. For each million you spend, you're buying a vote towards whatever side you're on. So I love that. I love games like TI and Hegemony that have a voting phase, because it's always, there's drama, and it's good drama. There are also decrees. If whoever is the current president has access to these special decrees to take actions. There's also an area where you can pay off debt, domestic or international debt. And when you do, you get a cool card in your hand. And I should probably back up, because I don't think I said how you win the game. But your goal in this game is to become the president, which I guess I did say that. But
yeah, it was implied, I feel.
But how do you become the president? You need support. So during the game, you're going to be, one player starts as the president. And that was me yesterday. I was playing as the character that starts, or the person, they're not characters, the person that starts as the president. I cannot remember their names right now, but I had one support. And you have, in this game, you have different types of support that you can get. The values range from 1 to 3, although there's an event that can make one of the 3s flip over to become 4 points of support. And if at any point a player gets 10 support, they automatically win the game. So a lot of the game is trying to get support. And the main way that you get support happens in the second phase of the game, which is the card phase. And that's where we're going to be playing cards. And a lot of this game is centered around the cards. There's a card market, PAX games, where or deck building games, where the card that's furthest to the left is free. The next one's $1, $2, $4. I think there were 7 or 8 cards in the market, and they get increasingly more costly, but they slide down so you can kind of see what's coming. And even in the board phase, after you take your board action, you can buy cards from the market. And one of the board actions is that you can make a deposit. So you can pay money to draw cards blindly from the top of the deck. That money sits on the bank. There's a bank board. And then another player later can and it's like if you spend 1 million, you get one card, or you spend 3 million, you get 2 cards. So you could decide how much you want to deposit. But then there's another action that's on that same board that says reserve funds. And that means you could pick up all the money that's there. So, if a couple players make deposits to get more card options, then that money piles up and it's like, hey, I might want to reserve some funds. There's also an embezzlement action where you can just take 5 million, but you're going to get a bad image conflict token. So this is another element to this game. There are these conflict tokens, and if at any point you gain your 4th conflict token, there's some ways to get rid of them, but more ways to get them. If you get 4 conflict tokens, you are out of the running for president. You get this helicopter token. They're flying you out, and then you end up losing all your support because you can't be president. But then you partner up. I don't know if you ever played Ankh, but like Ankh style, you partner up with the player who has the least amount of support in the running, and you're gonna be like taking slightly different actions to then try to help the other player become president. And if that player becomes president and wins, you both win. So there's that. But in a 4 or 5 player game, if and when a second player gets their 4th conflict token, the game ends immediately. And whoever has the most support at the time, aka the current president, they will win the game. And then the other way the game can end is if there are 6 debt slots, 3 international, 3 domestic. So if those debts are all paid off, whoever is the president at that moment wins the game. So there's so much opportunity for shenanigans. There's some take that, because during the card phase, you're usually playing sets of cards to take one action. Like one is lobby cards. If you play a set of 3 lobby cards, that's how you get support. That's the main way you're going to get those support tokens. And the minute you have more support than the current president, you become the president. Except for there's one president, and I feel bad not remembering all the names, but there's one president that starts off with these 2 tokens that basically says they cannot become president until we've gone through 3 presidents. So every time the president, so they're collecting support, but every time a new president gets selected, then they lose one of these tokens, and another new president, they lose a token. Now they're eligible to become the president. But president is kind of like shifting around. And the other thing that is relative to the president is that at the start of each president's turn, regardless if it's the card phase or the board phase, you're going to check to see if the debts are in balance or out of balance. And what I mean is there are 3 debt spaces for domestic debt, and then there are 3 for international. And if, let's say, there's 1 debt paid for domestic and none on the international side, they're out of balance. So something is going to happen. And the impact of this off balance is basically either make you discard cards from the top of the deck, like 10 cards, and then, or sometimes you're going to be putting cards back on the top of the deck. And why does this matter, Johannes? Because anytime we need to reshuffle the deck of like main cards, we all have to take a conflict token. So you might be like, this is a game where it's like, you might want that to happen. Like you might be ahead and you're trying to like push the game to end in one of these different ways, like paying the debts or making 2 players have too many conflicts that they can't become president. Like, so there's like lots of stuff like that. There are lots of different types of cards in the deck. There are some event cards that when they fall onto the market, they're going to trigger. There are other like operation cards. There are conflict cards where when you pair it with a lobby card, you can force a conflict onto one of your opponents. So again, like that's something that can push things over the edge. And yeah, it's a fun game. It's wild, and like, you know, it's exposed me to a new aspect of history that I didn't know this went down at all. And it like makes me curious to like go back and read like what happened, because I think there is a historical notes in the back of the rule book that I haven't read all the way through yet, but I think this was like something that like started in the 90s, like to how they got to this economic and like political crisis that led to 2 weeks having 5 different presidents. It's really, really wild.
That's wild.
But yeah, I think it's like a game where if you like PAX games, like it definitely, we all thought that it had or those of us who had played PAX Porfiriana before, it has some vibes of that, but it's a little bit lighter. It only takes like 30 to, I would say, 90 minutes if it's your first game.
Okay.
Because it can end early. Like it can really end early. So I think you can definitely make this an hour game once people know how to play it. And, you know, it's just, again, there's another thing I want to mention, just to like, in case there wasn't enough wackiness for you. But one of the things you can do during the card phase is trade with another player. And when you trade, you always have to trade at least one card each, but then you can add money, you can make promises, and none of those promises are binding. Also, if I say I'm going to give you a funding card, because one of the card types is funding, you play a set of those. The more you play, the more money you just get from funding. But I could say, hey, Johannes, I'm going to give you a funding card, and I promise I'll help with such and such later. And then I really hand you a different card, like something else, you know. So it's like one of those games that if you like games that are, you know, have a variable ending, are kind of like it's wild, you know. Like you're gonna be like, there's some take that, you know, you're just trying to position yourself to win and then make the game end in whatever way you can. And the tiles have actions that you can take. There are also 2 non-player characters that were a part of the history that you can kind of like interact with. And I think that's like the bulk of it, but it's very like it's a card driven game. You're going to be trying to get the right hand of cards to do stuff, and you're just trying to get the support you need or figure out how to win the game and become president by making other people look bad sometimes, or, you know. So it's like, it is a game where we had a great time playing it. And then I thought about it later that night and I'm like, I want to play this game again now that we've done it once. But yeah, so this is called DerrocAr, The Week of 5 Presidents. And yeah, I don't know that many people have been talking about this game or have played this game, but I definitely think it's worth checking out if any of that sounds interesting.
This sounds to me like one of those games which I like. I love the concept, but it's not going to work with our group. Like it's it's one of those like, this sounds fun, but not for me.
Yeah.
There is, like the take that and all of that usually don't go well. So it's, but it sounds like a lot of fun. It sounded like a very fun historical set game. And I love historical games when they can like set a light to something. It's like, this is something you never heard about. Here's a game about it.
Yeah, and now you're learning something new. You're right. It's totally not a game for everybody. But I will say, as far as the take that, it didn't really happen that much. Okay. Like there are ways where you can like do well. Actually, there's one tile where somebody could pay $7 million and make someone have a conflict token. But yeah, it's the kind of thing that excites me because it's like you are really trying to play the players, and there's sometimes where we're going to be like working together to push something on someone else and all that stuff. But yeah, definitely not for every group. But if any of that sounded interesting, it's called DerrocAr, The Week of 5 Presidents. Okay, it's time for your next game.
Yes, it is. And this is another good transition because this is another historical game based on the Mad Max period of time. The movies, I think they're documentaries, the Mad Max movies. So this is kind
Nice
of
tie
based
in
on.
there.
Yes, I was just trying to get that another
Past
transition in there.
movies, yeah.
Yes. This is a game called Dirt and Glory. It's not explicitly based on Mad Max, but it's very like thematically feels
Yeah.
like the same way. It is designed by Peter Wojtek, published 2024 by Pink Troubadour. It's a 2 to 4 player game, and this was another review copy that the publisher was nice enough to give to us. And this is a card game, and it's kind of weird because if you look at me and you look at the games I like, they're usually big, heavy Euro games. So now I'm talking about push your luck games in this episode. The second one of those. It's kind of weird. Like as I said, like I'm also an Omni gamer, so I love not completely, but I love games in almost all genres. So Dirt and Glory, we just played it yesterday, and I was like, this is one I should talk about because it was interesting. This is a game where you have a deck of cards. It's going to be from numbers from 1 to 5, and that's going to be your base deck of cards. You're going to, throughout the game, get more cards, drafting cards, and also getting cards out of your deck. And basically what you're trying to do, there's going to be a card in the middle. It's going to have a number on it, so kind of like it is blackjack. In blackjack, you want to get 21. Here, just a number is different each round. And I am, again, this is a tie into Flip 7 as well, because it's either I'm going to flip a card or I'm going to pass. And I'm trying to not get over that number. But here is also going to have cards with different abilities, cards that let you get fuel, which is a resource that lets you kind of manipulate or even play cards from your reserve, which it's called. You have cards that make you switch out cards. You have cards that if you play it and you go over the number, you get to discard it instead. You have all of these different things that, for me, makes it just enough of a choice-based game and not just a blackjack game. And we played it with 4 people in 30 minutes, which I think is for me, this was a perfect length for this kind of game, and I had a lot of fun. And that is basically the whole thing of the game. I enjoyed it because it has, as I said, just enough. It's not a complicated game, but it also is not just pure luck. It's all about, I'm kind of trying to remember what I have left in my deck, because there's so few cards, and every round you're going to get at least 1 card out. There you could take them back if you want to. There's different ways to kind of manipulate the cards and the cards that are out of the game. But all in all, you're trying to just use that kind of what do you call it? How many percent of the thing when you think you're going to get the number. English is not working. Probability.
Yeah, there we go.
English. Yes. So you played this. Did you say that?
Yes.
You played it?
Yeah.
Did you like it as well, or did you not like it?
I did like it, and it's really neat because it's like push your luck, blackjack, and deck building. And
yes.
I love that you have that choice, like you were saying, of like, should I pass now so I can get that really cool card before someone else does to add it to my deck? And also, like, you have the opportunity to pick up your discard area or reserve or whatever they call it and shuffle it back. But it's like, oh, do I want to do that? Because right now I know I still have like a 3 and a 5 or something. Like, yeah, I think it's pretty cool and a little different. I don't know. I never know with games that are lighter like this if it's going to be the one that's like, my go-to filler game for a bit. But I definitely think it's really fun, and I like the push your luck with the fuel tokens being like reminding me of Quacks of Quedlinburg, like the flipping your bottle. I was like, this is such a smaller box for something that gives me that push your luck feel, and I like deck building, and I think it's really cool.
And also for me, like the shorter and smaller the push your luck game for me is, the better they usually are, because the more I lose by going over, the less I usually like the game, because the frustration of busting and going over the number or over the thing that you do, for example, in Quacks, is always more frustrating than the good feelings when it works well. So this is like a perfect game for me because like, oh, that's okay because there's 6 rounds in the game. Each round is like 3 minutes long. So I'm going to be in the next round. So it's not like a big deal. It's just like, this is the game. And then it's fine with me. So this was like a pleasant surprise. And I am looking forward to play it again, which is high praise. Because
nice.
we play many games. So sometimes it's like, I want to play this more. It's like the highest praise you can give a game.
Sure. And you can't. And we definitely don't have time to play everything multiple times.
That is true.
As much as we want to.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my segue, because we're the transition queen and king here. We're talking about a post-apocalyptic Mad Max game. You always think about dirt, right? They're always in the desert. So now my next game, there's also dirt on planets. So the next game I'm going to mention is SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. It was a
That's
stretch.
a good one.
It was a stretch.
I could do a better one for you.
All right, go.
Dirt and Glory, Pink Troubadour, Galileo Galilei, SETI.
There we go. Yes, because Galileo Galilei is the same, designer as SETI. And SETI is designed by Tomáš Halík, and it was a
2001 release.
Yeah, a 2024 Essen release from CGE, who provided my copy, and plays with 1 to 4 players. I think I've played it twice now, and both times I've played it with 4 players. Again, curious to see how it plays with lower player counts. But in this game, you are leading a scientific institution, and you're searching for traces of life beyond planet Earth. And Tomáš Halík, the designer, was heavily inspired by current and emerging technologies, and he's really into space exploration. That's why it kind of makes sense that one of his other games at Essen was Galileo Galilei. But SETI is played over 5 rounds, and each round, each player is going to take 1 main action, and then you have a bunch of free actions you can take. And this is a game that, like, the table presence is really, really cool and unique and intimidating when you see it for the first time. Because when I saw it at Gen Con, I'm like, what is going on here? I'm intrigued, but I'm not sure, like, am I going to like this or not? But I was intrigued. So some of the actions you're doing on your turn, you can play a card. You have these, like, a deck of like 200 or more multi-use cards. Again, kind of a callback slightly to a Terraforming Mars deck. Your cards can be played as a free action to use the icon in the top that could give you movement, or it can give you resources. So that could be played as just to discard it as a free action, but you could also play them into your tableau for an effect, which some of those cards will also give you a scoring condition, a mission. Like, they're like missions that you can kind of complete to get something cool. Other cards you play and you do what it says, and they do have a cost usually, but you do what it says and then you just discard it. So there's a lot of fun card play. Also, cards can be tucked to give you more income, because this is the kind of game at the end of the round. It's a game like, you're talking about Terra Mystica, Gaia Project, where you're going to end up passing because you don't have any resources. And people are going to pass at different times, and you're going to be excited to get income. So you have stuff to use for the next round. But there's different opportunities where you'll be able to tuck a card from your hand to add to your income engine. But you're going to be launching, the game board is in the center is this circular solar system that has different rings and sectors, and it rotates. 3 different parts of it rotate, and that gets triggered sometimes by card effects, sometimes, but usually when players are researching technologies, that's going to trigger this little ball token to move around, and it's going to tell you, hey, we're rotating the yellow section right now. And then when someone else researches technology, we move that ball and it's like, okay, rotate the blue one. So different parts of the board are rotating at different times and it's driven by the players. I've liked that kind of thing because sometimes you can try to anticipate it and use it to your advantage. Other times you're like, oh no, like, why did you rotate it? So lots of cool moments and interaction with that. But one of the things you're going to be doing is launching probes onto Earth. And then once you have a probe on Earth, you're going to be trying to move it around to get onto different planets. And once you're on a planet within the solar system, you can then land on that planet. And that's a different part of the board. And when you do that, you usually get some really cool stuff. Or you can orbit the planet that your probe was on, which also gives you some really cool stuff. This game is kind of point salady. So a lot of things you're doing, you're like getting some instant victory points. You can also, and there are like lots of different planets, and some of the planets have multiple moons around it, but you have to get a technology to be able to land on a moon. But man, if you can land on a moon, they are like really, really juicy. And then you also you can do scans with your telescope and basically mark signals, like put one of your tokens out on different sectors of the solar system outside of the ring of the solar system. And when you do that, you get data. So each of these sectors at the beginning of the game are populated with a certain number of data, which are these blue, awesome little components. And so when you scan a particular area, you're going to put one of your tokens and take the data that you're like replacing it. And when one of these little sectors, these scanning sector areas, are filled with player signals, then we're going to see who had the majority. And if you have the majority, you're likely going to get a pink trace. So one of the things you're doing in this game is you're trying to get these different traces. So pink represents life in the star systems, yellow represents alien life in the solar system, and blue represents alien life from that you've detected or discovered from analyzing data. So during the game, you're trying to like get these different traces and mark your piece on them because they score. But the more exciting thing that they do is they help you discover alien species. So one of my favorite things about this game is that when you set it up, you're going to put 2 out of the 5 alien species boards randomly face down. And then as players find these different traces of life, once you have a full set on one of the alien boards, the left side or the right side, let's say, Johannes, you put a pink trace out, I put a yellow, and Sunniva put the blue. We're going to flip over that alien species board and see what we found. And each alien species comes with like special cards and special components and changes up rules slightly in really interesting ways. And you have this like sense of like you're really discovering something, you know, like I'm excited. And when I played the second game of SETI, I played with 3 of the people that I played the first game with. So 3 of us knew it, and there was 1 new person. And my friend Tim is like, hey, he's like, can we use like some of the, I was about to say spirits because I'm on the spirit island. Can we use some, only the species we haven't played? And I was like, no, I'm going to randomly do it because even if we got one of the same ones combined with a new one that we hadn't seen is going to be like a complete different game. And we just so happen to get 2 different species. So in my 2 games, I've seen 4 different species, and they're really different and neat. Like some I think awesome. We liked a little more than others. Like, and I totally see where they can go nuts with expansions. Like I already am like, I want 5 more alien species because it's so exciting to me to like go in and like, flip the board. And each alien species comes with this little player aid that has this lore. And then it tells you about the rules and how to set up different things on the board. Really, really cool. Like that's a really, really cool aspect of the game. You also have, similar to something like Terraforming Mars, you have these gold scoring milestones. So as you gain a certain amount of victory points, I think it's like 25, you hit 50, you hit 75, you're able to put your marker on one of these goals to say what you're going to score points for, or the amount of points you're going to score for something at the end. For example, like I told you, you're trying to get these 3 different types of traces. You also have 3 different color technologies that correspond to the traces. So like one of the milestones might be having a set of all 3 technologies, or just having technology tiles regardless. And it could be like for every 2, if I'm the first person to put my marker there, I get 8 points per. If you go next, Johannes, you only get 6 points per. And then anybody can go and get 3 points per. So it's like that kind of thing where if you get to, you want to be first to mark a milestone. And then after you mark that milestone, you want to do good at it. You want to let that drive your strategy a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the multi-use cards are awesome. There's lots of player interaction because everybody's racing to do things first. Like, or like, oh no, you're researching right now. You're spending publicity to research a technology. Now the thing's going to rotate. And I was really trying to get to Saturn. And now I need an extra movement. And it feels very tight with resources, with cards, like everything you're like thinking about, like, oh, do I want to spend, my credits on this? Like the main 2 resources are credits and energy. So different things cost, different actions cost credits, energy, the combination. But again, having the multi-use cards that you can ditch one to get something can sometimes give you that one little thing you need to do something cool.
Oh, yeah.
It has a really great player aid. It definitely looks a lot more complicated than it actually is. And it feels pretty like thematic too. It's like we're getting data, and now that we have all this data, we can, analyze blue traces. Like we could do something cool. I'm definitely curious to play it with lower player counts. I think if everybody knows the game, like this could definitely be a 2.5 hour game.
Okay.
I think the first time we played, all new players, I think it was about 3 hours. So yeah, it's not that crazy. And again, like the cards are really cool. Just rotating the solar system, revealing the alien species. It's really, really fun. So I enjoyed it quite a bit, like more than I thought I was going to. Because at first I was actually going to play Galileo Galilei first. But then we all wanted to play SETI, played SETI, and we were like, let's play SETI again. Because we definitely made some rules mistakes, even though the player aid is really good. But some of us learned from watching the video and just kind of missed little things here and there. But yeah, I hope you get the opportunity to play SETI soon, because I'll be curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear you liked it, because it's high on the list. It's just been, as I said, like if it was a normal year where we weren't sick and I didn't have to work 5 to 10 hours a day, we probably would have played it already. But we are getting to it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of happy they moved Spiel dates next year, so it's a bit later. So I will be done with my big projects before, which is great.
Nice, awesome. All right, well that was SETI. What's your next game, Johannes? Is this your last game?
Yes. My last game for today is going to be another great transition, because we have already mentioned Galileo Galilei. We have now spoken about SETI. So what is more fitting than to speak about the last design from Tomáš Holek, the release that Spiel, which was Tea Garden. This was, as I said, designed by Tomáš Holek, published 2024, published by Albi, 2 to 4 players, and it was another review copy given to us. Basically, actually sent to us from Rado, because he was going to send his copy, and he sent it to us, so we got to play it before Spiel. So, spoiler alert, it's a fun game. It is a pretty straightforward game. I have played Galileo Galilei one time. I think maybe they are kind of on par weight-wise. Maybe Tea Garden is slightly simpler, depending on what kind of games you're into, but SETI is probably, or is the most complex of them. Tea Garden is another deck building game-ish. It is a deck building game, but it's a slow deck building game. So it's not one where you draw a lot of cards and you play them, then you draw next. So whenever I think deck building, when people say deck building, I always think Dominion. I always think like playing all my cards, discarding them, drawing a new hand of cards.
Right.
In Tea Garden, you are using your hand of cards to do actions. You are playing over an amount of rounds. You're trying to do the best actions possible, of course, to get points. There is a theme about making tea gardens out in the countryside. Yes, I don't know the theme. It's about being awesome and getting victory points, I guess.
But it's Tomáš Halík, so how is it not a tea garden in space?
In space. It might have been a space game and they rethemed it because, like, I don't need to have 3 space games in 1 year. That's too much.
Yeah.
But basically, what is the coolest part about this game is the card play, because on your turn, you are using the cards in your hand to do an action. So the action you choose to do is going to be your choice. But when you do that action, you're going to have action points for that action. And those action points depends on the amount of cards you play. And every card is going to have a number on it. So you're going to play, basically, you're going to draw, I think it's 4 or 5 cards at the beginning of a round, and you are not drawing any more. So it's not like you are drawing new cards, you're drawing only cards at the beginning of the round. So if I choose to use 3 of my cards for one action, I might do fewer actions, but I might do that action better. So you're always trying to have more cards in hand because there is a few ways to draw more cards or to have cards from the last round. So you're always trying to have enough cards. So when let's say I play a 3 and a 2, I get to do one action with a power of 5. So you can do different actions. You can build the tea gardens. You can do a travel action, which is like moving on a rondel, getting bonuses and victory points. And then there are the coolest thing is that the cards also might be a kind of multi-use cards, but not really. It's just that some cards have a symbol on it. It might be a teapot, which you use for buying cards, or it might be a bonus action that you can do. So sometimes you might, and only one card is going to show. So when you play them, you splay the cards. So you will see the number of all the cards, but you will only see the top symbol. So that's going to be your bonus or your teapot. And what is cool is that when you buy a card, which you probably will have to do because you want to do more actions than the cards you have, you will use the teapots that are shown in your tableau together to buy the cards, together with money, to buy the cards, and you get the cards directly into your hand. So the coolest, I will say that we really like this game. It's pretty tight. It's one of the best medium games I played this year. It's a medium weight game, but it's tight enough to make me be like, this is fun. I am having a great time, but still not super overwhelming. So I could play this with players who have played board games, but don't have to be like into heavy games. So I really, that is like everything else in the game. Many games, you know this, many games has this really cool concept, and then everything else is there just to make this concept work. So the things we do in the game is fun, but they're not like revolutionary. The cool thing is the card play, and that's what's going to make me come back to the game, basically. The card play and the buying of new cards and the deck building element of the game.
Awesome. That sounds really cool. And I did not get a chance to check out Tea Garden at Spiel, but I definitely was curious about it, so I'm glad you brought that one up.
It is, we really liked it, and I am very excited to play SETI, to play Galileo Galilei more, and to see what is coming from Tomáš in the future as well. It's kind of weird or interesting to be like a first-time designer or first-time published designer. I know he's been working on these games for years,
sure,
but to have let's do all at once.
Essen releases like crazy. Wow.
It's probably been a wild ride for him as well so far, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And he's a super sweet guy too. I did an interview with him for SETI, and then I ended up talking to him when I was at the Pink Troubadour booth at some point.
Yeah, I also saw him there, so I said hi. Seemed like a nice down to earth guy.
Cool. So that's Tea
That
Garden.
was my last game, Tea Garden, yeah.
I have one more, but your Tea Garden reminded me something I did not say about DerrocAr that I really wanted to mention.
Uh-huh.
In DerrocAr, because there are a lot of cards in that game, at the end of your turn for both phases, you have to discard down to 5 cards. So, that is an interesting constraint that makes, because it's you can draw cards, you can buy cards, and you're trying to shape your hand, but you only carry over 5 cards. So anyway, that was just the delayed mention, something I wanted to share about that game, because I thought that made things a little challenging and interesting as well. Okay, how are we going to segue here? Well, sometimes tea, if you shake the bag, it can get a little dusty. So my next game is Red Dust Rebellion. Do you have a better transition?
No.
At this point, yeah.
It seems like it's space, but it was sadly the one Thomas Holk game not about space, so we couldn't use that.
Yeah. Okay, looks like you're going to have to talk about Galileo Galilei now.
Galileo Galilei is a space game. Now it's on to you.
And we're going to talk about Red Dust Rebellion. We're back in space on Mars. This is a brand new game from GMT Games, who sent me a copy of this. It's designed by Jared Carmichael. Jared is the guy who runs the YouTube channel. Is it called 3 Minute Board Game Reviews or something? But he basically has all these videos on his channel where he tells you about a game in 3 minutes. And it's super duper helpful, because sometimes you just need that quick look to see if it's something you want to dig into more. But Jared designed this game, and it's a 1 to 4 player coin game, very highly anticipated because it is the first coin game that is not historically based, and it's sci-fi. And just like you were saying with Civolution, you've only played it once, and it's you're still wrapping your head around it. I'm going to say the same thing here. I've only played it once. This is very first impressions, because this is the kind of game that you play, and after you do each action once, you're like, okay, I know how that action works. But because it's so layered and asymmetric, you don't know the impacts of what other players are doing initially. And even after playing the first game, the faction that I played, I don't know if I have a clear path to knowing how to play it better. I did not play it well. But anyway, for people not familiar with coin games, they're very layered and asymmetric kind of area control games. The factions are asymmetric in what they are doing on their turns and what their victory condition is. In this game, there's a struggle on Mars. I was playing as the corporations, where I just needed a lot of profits to win. And I was sometimes helping out the Martian government, who that player is going to need a lot of support in the different areas of Mars. And also confidence. There's an Earth government confidence track that they're trying to work up, because that helps them, the Martian government player, do well as well. And then you have the insurgents, the Red Dust movement, and they're just building up opposition. They're the Civil War people, hey, they're protesting, just wreaking havoc, do not like the government. So they're trying to get a bunch of opposition and build their bases, which is kind of simulating their crew getting bigger and bigger. And then you have the Church of the Reclaimer, and they need to get their bases out. They're basically building these churches out and trying to spread their religion on Mars. And just like every coin game, the asymmetry here and the moments of oh, maybe I should ally with this person, this faction to do this or that. It's all there, but there's a lot of new stuff that I really, really thought was cool. Also, another big thing with coin games, for people who aren't familiar, is the whole game is driven by this event deck of cards, and that's going to tell us who is eligible to take a turn. So for every event card, only two players at max are going to get to do something. And depending on what the first player decides, if they choose to not pass, then the second player only has one option. So there's a really cool eligibility system that's driven by these event cards. And the event cards are often really, really juicy. But if I choose to take an event card and you're next eligible, you're going to get to do a bunch of cool stuff. So it's like, it's the trade-off. And the other thing is you see the event card that's coming next. So maybe I'm like, ooh, that's a good event card. But if I pass right now, I can be first eligible in that next event. And that's really even more powerful. The gameplay is periodically interrupted in this game with dust storm rounds, which are like the propaganda cards from other coin games. And basically, when you set up the game, you shuffle the deck of cards, you make 3 stacks of 12 cards, and in the bottom 6 of each of those 3 stacks, you're going to shuffle one of these dust storm cards. And that's when the dust storm round hits, that's when we check victory, we get resources, maybe like get some support, redeploy units. It's like kind of a big maintenance phase. But you need, if you want to win and end the game early, you need to be winning by the time that happens. So there's and we see when it's coming too, because it's, you see the event that's coming next. But the things that are kind of like different with this, and I have not played every single coin game, so I don't know if another one does this, but there was this flashpoint track that, like, whenever you reveal a new up next event card, it will have a flashpoint value, I think from like 0 to 3, and you move this track up. And when this track hits the 5th space, we're going to do a flashpoint round, and that's when stuff's going to happen. We're going to be moving population from Earth to this transit area, then to Phobos, and anybody who's on Phobos will then, these population tokens will then move to this area called displaced population, where we're going to be trying to find those people homes in different parts of Mars. And I think the government, I think they benefit a lot from the population, but there are lots of things that where the population varies in different areas, that it's beneficial for certain factions. So I thought that was cool because it's almost like a mini dust storm round or propaganda round. But the other thing that happens during Flashpoint is that the church player has these we'll have these dust storm tokens on the board, and different areas will randomly become like they're about to like be really dusty and create this storm in a Dune kind of way. So that was like a new element, because depending if there's a raging storm or a storm approaching, that impacts the red dust movement and different people from moving and interacting with spaces on the board. So I thought that was really cool. The other thing that I really liked that was kind of new in this game that I hadn't seen, at least, is that the church has their own deck of asset cards. And usually in coin games, every faction will have like a resource token. And you're keeping track of like, oh, I have this many resources. Actions cost resources. My faction, the corporation, didn't have to spend any, I didn't have a resource token. I just had to get profits to move up, which I found quite challenging. But the church, instead of having a resource token, they have a hand of cards, these asset cards that have different amounts of money or resources. And it also has like secret events. So if the church player ends up taking an event space, they can trigger one of their personal events that we don't even know about. And it was just like really, really neat, because you again, you don't know what's going to happen. The other thing is the church player can discard these cards to jump up in eligibility, like for turn order. So they have the choice of that every time you start a new event card or round. And the Red Dust faction had this campaign deck that certain things happen. So there were a lot of just really cool thematic aspects to it. I really appreciate that a couple of things that each coin game, it seems like GMT and the design teams are putting more and more effort to make them more accessible. We each had our own little player boards, and on the opposite side, there were strategy tips. And I was like, that's super duper helpful. And I also am just excited that this game is going to get more people, hopefully, into the coin series. And it's like Undaunted 2200 Callisto is going to get more people into the Undaunted world because, not everybody wants to play a historically based game. So, which is fair, or maybe people are just intimidated by it. And after they play this, now they will be like, I want to check out Cuba Libre, Who knows? But it was really fun. We all walked away feeling like we didn't quite grasp everything we should have been doing the right way, but we had a great time, and it's definitely something I want to explore more because it was fantastic. Highly recommend it if you're ever been curious about the coin series. It's heavy. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, I've played probably a half dozen different coin games, and even then I'm playing as this faction where I'm like, I don't really know how I'm setting myself up to do better. It's going to take a little more research, but it was still fun pulling levers and everything and just, trying to figure it out. We were all fumbling our way through. Have you ever played a coin game?
No, not at all. Not a single one. It's one of those genres of games where we've been like, that is something that people speak about, and I've never been like, and we never been big into war games, and they're kind of all listed as war games, so it's not something that I've been
you've gravitated towards.
No, but I'm always interested to try new things, so I don't think it will be. I don't know, because I haven't played them. This sounds interesting. I would like to play this. I don't know where and when I would do that, but I would like to play it.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it, especially if you, I don't know if you're a fan of Root or any games with, asymmetric gameplay like that, but it's really, really fascinating what they do from a design perspective to make these different factions interact and feel different and feel thematic. And, we just had a blast playing it, even though we were again all still learning and fumbling our way through a little bit. So cool. So check out anybody interested in asymmetric space game that's a little bit heavy. Red Dust Rebellion is super duper cool. Well, Johannes, initially, I thought we were going to be wrapping up in an hour and a half, and but it was, we get caught up talking about games, and I had a great time chatting with you. It was great to see you and meet you at Gen Con and see you again at Essen. I really appreciate with you and Cineva, work so hard for the content you're putting out on your channel. And it's appreciated because it definitely, like I said, when I first started gaming, I was watching a lot of your videos because I'm learning about different games, or I want to see your top 10 lists. But anyways, I hope to catch you probably next year. If you're ever in Los Angeles, let me know. But thanks for enlightening me on all these new games.
Yeah, the same. This was a lot of fun. This was, it's always fun to speak about games. It's just with people who like games, speaking about games is one of my favorite things to do. So it was a pleasure, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
You've been listening to the Board Game Geek podcast, produced and edited by Candace Harris. Special thanks to Matt Fonda for editing and mixing our music. Be sure to visit us on the web at BoardGameGeek.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitch under Board Game Geek. You can reach us by email at podcast@BoardGameGeek.com. Thanks for listening, and happy